Welcome everyone to the second edition of the digital licensing sessions. We want to thank Primavera Pro for hosting us and co-producing with us the event one more year. We want to thank as well our sponsors, Interstellar Music Group and Too Young for making the event possible as well. And welcome everyone. Thank you for making it to this second edition. It's a pleasure to share these couple of days with you and together learn, discuss about what's going on in the digital licensing space. And we're going to have content, workshops, panels that will illustrate the current situation and current affairs, technology that can be used to improve royalty performance in the digital space. And we will start by having a panel that I will pass on the word to our head of licensing, David, that wants to explore what's the situation, the current situation with the user-generated content platforms and music. And for that, we have the pleasure and the honor to have representatives of Meta and YouTube with us. And yeah, with no further delay, I will pass the word to David Serras, our head of licensing, that will take care of the panel. Thank you very much, everyone, for coming. Cheers.
Thank you very much, Jordi. Thank you, Lauren, and thank you, Eduard, for joining us, and thank you, every one of the attendees there. So basically, like Jordi said, we'll be talking about like licensing models on streaming platforms and basically UGC content ones, the ones that we have here. My name is David Serras. I'm the licensing and international manager for Unison Rights, and I have with me Lauren Landon from Facebook and Eduard Castelló from Meta, sorry, and Eduard Castelló from YouTube.
Good start.
So can you briefly introduce yourself, what you do, and your current position at Meta?
Yes, so hi everyone, lovely to meet you, and I hope we'll get to connect over like the next day or two. But my name is Lauren Landon, and I lead our music publishing partnerships at Meta across Europe, Middle East, and Africa. I've been at Meta for 3 years, and I guess we'll talk about it, but our goal is to really bring music to the spaces that people are already sharing, connecting, and telling stories. I'm based in London, and I have the pleasure of looking after our day-to-day relationships with music publishers across Europe, but also really advocating for the needs of publishers and songwriters internally as well, across what we call the family of apps, which is Facebook, Instagram, Messenger, and the Quest, which I'm sure you'll want to ask some questions about as well, given we're called Meta now and not
Meta
Facebook.
now, sorry.
And before that, I worked at the Performing Rights Society in the UK, PRS for Music, where I learnt everything there is to know-ish about publishing. I don't think that's ever possible, actually. But yes, I haven't really looked back since. So really excited to be here, and thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Lauren, from Meta. Eduard, can you introduce yourself
From
as well?
YouTube. You got that one. Hi, I'm Eduard Castelló. I'm originally from Barcelona, so it's a pleasure to be back. I'm also based in London. I've been at YouTube for close to 12 years. So it really went from a pure UGC platform to hosting, all the music videos in the world, to having a streaming service, to launching shorts in the recent years. So it's been quite a long and interesting journey. I am the global head of independent music, so I work on the label side, and I work with independent music partners like from distributors, rights agencies like Merlin, labels, artists all over. So it's a fun ride every day to, juggle between like Orchard and some label in Vietnam that's like getting a deal for the first time and needs to get ingested. So yeah, excited to be here and to have a chat with you guys.
Thank you very much, Edward. So, like we did last year, we know that we have a lot of different backgrounds in the public, and we would like to sense a little bit the room so we don't get too technical or less technical than we should go. So, how many of you are familiar with publishing rights? Can you raise your hands? Okay.
Wow.
Yes, that's what we like to
This
see.
will go for you, right? And with neighboring rights, how many of you are familiar with neighboring rights? Okay. So you'll have a little bit more trouble explaining your division.
My side is easy. My side is
Yeah,
like
he's
the artist and
fine.
label. It's like master is the simple one. Yeah.
It's well, not for me.
Okay.
Okay. So, let's start with you, Lauren. Can you tell us a little bit about Meta's journey in music so far?
Yes, so Meta's music journey, I guess, started around 5 years ago when we forged our initial partnerships with the industry, really anchored on this idea that music could be a tool that users could use to enhance the way that they're telling their stories on Facebook and Instagram. And I'm sure, hopefully, lots of you are familiar with Facebook and Instagram. You'd be surprised how many times I say that, and people are like, no, don't use them. But our music features are obviously user-generated content, but also like the music sticker on Instagram. I don't know if you guys have used that. You can use a clip of music and put that on a story, and it can really change the way that the content sits on the platform. Believe it or not, videos with music actually only became available on the platform in 2018. So we've come a really long way in a short space of time. Before then, if a user uploaded a video with music, it wouldn't be available. And I guess in terms of a big milestone for our music team this year has been launching music revenue sharing on Facebook. So this is where we've enabled a video creator to use music from our licensed music catalog and monetize that video, which has given music rights holders and creators a new way to earn money on Facebook. So that was super exciting for our team. And for those of you who are familiar with publishing, which by the sounds of it is most of you, a lot of what underpinned this transition to revenue sharing was to do with our launch of our new way of exchanging data with the industry. We call it post-claiming. It's where Meta sends out usage reports to the industry, and we have been doing that for 4 years now already. But we will send out usage reports containing information on how music is being consumed on the platforms, and our partners will then ingest those reports and tell us the linking composition claim information. And this has been a major milestone for Meta. We're at the start of this journey, but I'm really looking forward to getting some of the benefits of more accurate data exchange. And I guess the final point is just, I sometimes like to think of where Meta as a social media platform sits in this music ecosystem. I think a gap formed in this world where we're like sat back and listening to streams and playlists. And I think social media companies like Meta offer a really interesting position in this space where you can actually tell the story behind songs, or artists can interact directly with fans. Fan-to-fan communities can start up on Facebook groups, and really you can actively use music as a way of expressing yourself. So right now it's quite hot under these lights. I might put a little clip of It's Getting Hot in here. But yeah, I think that's a really interesting, just something to think about in terms of social media and music.
It is. It's very interesting. And I'm glad you mentioned like post-claim and the need to submit like usage reports and properly matching those, because our next panel with Irene from Unison and with Emma from BMAT, this is all like a symbiosis. Like it's like the stakeholders. We need to have licensors, licensees, but also our providers, our vendors that act on the matching landscape, and it's important that they match it with accuracy and with a good pace, right? Because this is something that we really need. And Eduard, this sounds more like a philosophical question, but why is there a music division at YouTube, and what do you do there? What's the structure? Can you enlighten us a little bit on
I mean,
that?
so we are part of YouTube, right? But like the structure of the company has like a completely separate music team for several reasons. Like we aim to be the best destination for music fans to discover, consume, and create music-generated content. We started our journey a bit earlier. Like we've been around for 20 years. Like we've been licensed with the industry for the good part of 2 decades. Content ID was like a key pivotal moment for the history of YouTube. Like it's like this automated identification system that allows us to match any video that gets uploaded to the platform instantly to the copyright owner and pay labels and publishers directly. So when I started around 12 years ago, YouTube was mainly a user-generated platform. It was dogs on skateboards and cat videos, if you remember those times.
There's nothing wrong with those.
Nothing wrong with that. Slowly, we became the destination for music video. And that was also at the time the world was moving to mobile. So there was like a big shift in relicensing our agreements to make sure that we could serve all that music content in mobile phones, right?
Okay.
So like the need to do that quick also determined that we needed to basically carve out a division of the business development and our legal teams to ensure that we had a direct relationship with the industry that allowed us to continue to update our agreements so we could continue to innovate and we could deliver fast innovation to our product and engineering teams. Since then, we also licensed subscription rights, so we could launch at the beginning. Some of you may remember we did a few beta tests, like we call it YouTube Music Key, then it was YouTube Red, and then eventually in 2018 we launched YouTube Music and YouTube Music Premium. We announced in November that we're over 80 million subscribers for our YouTube Premium products, which has been the journey of 5 years. So that sits on top of our ad-funded model. And within ad-funded, as I mentioned, we have content that includes music that's uploaded by users, and then content that's delivered directly by record labels and artists, and that we then kind of merge with our publishing infrastructure to make sure we pay all the publishing rights holders. And then in the last 3 years, we've been working hard to also secure rights to launch Shorts, which is a vertical short form video product that sits within the main the main YouTube app. So that again has like a different way to be licensed and has a different way to be apportioned with the industry. So right now we're operating a constellation of more than 10 ways to monetize on YouTube. There's memberships, there's merchandising, there's ticketing, there's paid digital goods. So all those products allow us to pay artists, songwriters, and rights holders. And that is the main reason why we need like a fully dedicated team to deal with all our partners in this space.
Well, thank you for that. Thank you for explaining that. And you touched several times the word licensing, and also you described, both of you, the products and the features that you have. So that brings us to our next question, which is maybe a tricky one, but we'd like to understand, what do you see, Lauren and Eduard, as the main challenges? And, well, I think it's more challenges, but also the opportunities in global music licensing today. Well, naturally, you speak more from the publishing side of things, and you from the label or neighboring rights side of things. But can you please explain it a little bit?
Yeah, so I guess speaking from the publishing side and more generally, there are probably 3 or 4 potentially interrelated areas that I'd touch on, putting aside the focus on value, which is obviously the first thing you talk about. I guess the number one thing for a company like Meta is just the vast number of entities that we have to do licenses with. It can take a long time, and I hope this isn't fake news, but even just for CMOs, I think there are closer to 200 collective management organizations just in the world, and that's only one type of music rights holder. So that's challenging. And then related to that, it's not always easy for a DSP, for someone like Meta, to identify who actually controls what at what time. And obviously, this is very much linked to the state of publishing data as well. And I'm about to say the F word. Get ready for it. Fragmentation. Get your publishing bingo cards out. There's been a trend around the world where rights are fracturing. So rights holders are removing rights from companies that may have held them for a very long time and choosing to place them elsewhere, or even splitting up rights flows between mechanical and performing rights. And on the other hand, there's also a trend for aggregation of rights. So we have hubs hoovering up rights in certain regions, which creates different challenges, and we're seeing both of them at the same time. I think the last thing I'd say is, for a company like Meta, we have a desire to be fair and equitable to all of our rights holders, and we often have to balance this against partner demands for bespoke solutions, systems, operations processes, and terms, and that can be really, really difficult to scale. But for us, our principle is to be as fair and equitable as we can, even though it can be difficult. So they're the challenges, but also lots of opportunities.
A lot of opportunities, right?
Yeah, I think it's similar on the recorded side. There's, over the last decade, we've seen like a massive democratization of access to music creation, music distribution, and music marketing, which means there's more music than ever being delivered to platforms on a daily basis. I think the public number is like 120,000 songs are being delivered to DSPs every day. So there's like all the fragmentation rights issue that Lauren has touched on. There's like different structures in the recorded side. There's artists, direct, the DIY world, like which massively has grown over the last 5 years under companies like DistroKid, TuneCore, City Baby, etc. But then you also have label distribution, you have label services, you have like traditional record labels that operate differently, rights agencies like Merlin, global distributions brand like Orchard and Believe. So we deal with all these rights holders, and similarly to what you were touching on, like some of them require some bespoke solutions, but like we really want to make sure that we deliver freedom of opportunity. At YouTube, we're an open platform. Anybody can go open a channel on YouTube, like, find their own way. I love the fact that it's such a merit-based economy, and that we've seen, genres exploding from Latin America, Korea, Afrobeats right now. Yeah. There's like a really interesting hot scene coming out of Punjabi in India or coming out of the Middle East. This is all thanks to the openness of the platform. So we definitely like keep our licensing and our business development mantra the very same way we keep the platform. But I think to me, probably like the velocity at which the world is changing, right? Like if you think about things like Web3 or things like user-generated content, and like how the creator economy has exploded. Like we also launched a similar product called Creator Music that allows monetizing YouTube creators to buy licenses from rights holders or to rev shares, similar to what you were mentioning. This requires like a re-education of every licensor, a relicensing of every agreement, and we're operating in the thousands, right? So as you can imagine, like to deliver that at scale and in a timely manner, so we can continue to deliver products and engineering. It's like it's not impossible. It's definitely like that's what we do, but it's challenging and it's hectic, but it's also super exciting, and it kind of keeps you on the eye of the hurricane, I guess.
Thank you.
I've aged 10 years, 3 years, but it's fine.
We're not going to disclose our age.
It's worth it.
No, but let's talk about that point, because you mentioned that one of the challenges, the F word, fragmentation. So now on the global landscape, we are talking, at least on the publishing side, of having like to obtain a lot of licenses from traditional CMOs and also IMEs like Unison. We see fragmentation, but we also see the A word, aggregation, like you said. So hubs like Unison Hub, which encompasses a lot of CMOs from outside Europe, but also SASAMs and PRS, ICE, and that's at Mint. So there are a lot of A and F around it, right? But you mentioned that you've aged 10 years in 3 years. So you came from a CMO. So how's the journey from a traditional CMO to a big tech company?
Yeah, it's a really good question. And as I said, I learned a lot about publishing at CMO, at PRS for music. And I think taking my Meta hat off for a minute, I think the CMO space, by the way, everyone knows what a CMO, a collective management organization is, an organization that licenses, monitors, and collects mechanical and performing rights, does the deals with the DSPs, and then distributes those licensing fees as royalties. So yeah, with my Meta hat off, I think it's a really interesting space and time for CMOs. Whenever I go to panels or conferences, I'm hearing these amazing stories of innovation, like moving systems completely to the cloud, or creating blockchain startups for copyright ownership, or even doing an NFT drop, which I saw, which was amazing. And I think it's, again, appears to me anyway from the outside, it's an increasingly competitive space for rights acquisition as well, which I think is also really helping to change and add some pace to the CMO world. So that's my little take on CMOs. From Meta's perspective, they're an incredibly important partner. In many countries, they unlock the ability for us to launch music features there. And for me, I'm just so lucky that I get to work with such a diverse partner set. One day I can be talking to you, the next day I can be talking to someone in Latin America or someone in Vietnam. And I think that's a really cool perk of the job. And for us, it's all about canvassing for feedback and trying to advocate internally for tools that will enable collective management organizations to better understand how their repertoire is doing on platforms like Facebook and Instagram, but also giving tools to help them manage their rights.
Okay.
But yes, super interesting space. And I have a soft spot because obviously I spent 5 years at PRS, which
Sure.
I loved.
Well, thank you for that. But like you said, it's like you can be speaking or talking with Vietnam today, and with Barcelona tomorrow, and with Argentina next week. So, is there like a different approach that you guys have, Eduard and Lauren, when it comes to the approach with the licensors and with the players in different regions? Because you both lead like global licensing departments or an operation department. So, is there a different approach in each region, and how do you deal with that from YouTube and Meta?
I mean, on ours, I wouldn't say there's a massively different approach on
Okay.
the recorded side. It's quite consistent. Like on the recorded side, we often get global rights from partners. So regardless of where the partner is based, in the majority of cases, they deliver global rights. There is a significant percentage of recorded music rights that are fragmented. But the distribution is very clear in terms of like, you could have Sony delivering US, Canada, and then an indie label delivering rest of the world if they have done a distribution deal in those territories with a major. But generally speaking, we license the same rights. We license them from different parties, right? Like I touched on it before. Like there's the artist direct, there's label direct, there's artist services, and there's label services.
Okay.
But then the grantor rights is effectively the same. We run a global product. We run a global platform that's available worldwide, with a few exceptions of countries where we're not live. But the reality is we need a very consistent grant of rights. We want to be consistent with the economics as well from a fairness perspective. And the licenses are effectively the same. There's always differences in terms of, in India, for instance, the audio and the visual rights are often carried by the same company who also carries publishing. So there's, like if you think about like the license structure there, like we obviously optimize for that instead of like, having like multiple agreements with the same entity, we can consolidate that.
Okay.
But other than that, those few exceptions, I would say on the recorded side is quite consistent.
Okay, thank you, Eduard. And the publishing side, not that much, right?
Blimey.
Yeah, if only,
If
right?
only.
Yeah.
No, I guess, approaches to licensing and operations vary significantly, I would say, region to region and even country to country on the publishing side. So, like, top of my head, you just mentioned Argentina and Latin America. In Latin America, there's been way less fragmentation than there has been in Europe. Just as an example, there are different jurisdictions per country pertaining to, copyright law. In the US, the publishing rights landscape is very different to in Europe. So all of these things we're having to juggle. And, like you said, our approach is to try and standardize wherever possible, to build for scale, to be fair and to be efficient. But this can be really challenging when you're dealing with 200 partners with completely different ways of working. And I think it's a challenge for the publishing industry. But obviously on the data side, we do have bodies like DDEX standardizing the way that we exchange data. So Meta's active in that space, and I hope stuff like that continues. But yeah, it's challenging.
Okay, yeah, it is. It is different, but you try to have like at least the same models, but the jurisdictions may change, and then they are really different, and then you have impact on how you conduct the licensing. But you conduct licensing globally from New York and London, and you from London, right? So, and do you sort of have a strategy, or is it good to incorporate people coming from the other side? We were talking about symbiosis, no? We need to have like licensees and licensors, not like enemies, like 20 years ago when we started discussing this, or like in the offline market, where there's always that feeling of animosity, between licensors and licensees. And nowadays we see that we need to have a symbiosis between licensors and licensees, and also the matching vendors and the vendors that use metadata to help our operations. So is it important for you to get closer to the sector, to the licensee sector, and to the vendor sector in order to conduct your operations?
Yeah, absolutely. I came from a collective management organization, and there's 6 of us that work in publishing at Meta, 4 of us came from collective management organizations. And I think that's because there is broader expertise that you can quickly tap into. But also for me personally, again with my Meta hat off, I wanted to go and champion rights holders and particularly songwriters' rights, because that's what I love. It's one of my passions in life, and get to do that at a big tech company where you can really have an impact on, creating strategies to do that, partnering with the industry. For me, my job isn't just licensing and operations, it's also working creatively with songwriters to try and amplify songwriter stories on Instagram. So like Reels, I don't know if you guys have tried Reels yet. It's our short form video that's kind of in the middle of the app. But there's some really cool opportunities for songwriting stuff on there. Like you could do a little song and then collaborate with someone. So yeah, it's so important to be close. And I think you're right. I think it's outdated now, the idea of this like enemies. We're all the same people, and we all work together at some point, either
Sure, it
switching
is.
places.
Absolutely. What about you, Eduard? You
Yeah.
know that you took Jacque from BMAT.
Oh,
Yeah. I mean, you can make no enemies in this industry. Like, you bump into people on the other side of the table very, very quick. So it doesn't matter how contentious a deal negotiation gets. Like, you always need to leave with a smile, because chances are that person may be your boss, or it may be sitting, on the opposite end. But yeah, I think similarly, so my team looks after the licensing, the commercial relationship, the partnerships, and also the label relation side. So we have people coming from all sides of the industry. I think, like, we've grown significantly over the last decade that I've been there. And I would say the majority of people that we've hired during this time was coming from some side of the industry, from people working in licensing, from business to legal, to people working at labels, people working at PROs and COSOCs. Like our global head of music is Leor Cohen, who ran Word and Music, founded 300 Entertainment. So he has like a long and rich history in the music industry. And yeah, I mean, this you always look for that diversity component. Like, we do have global central teams in the U.S. and London, but we have people in Singapore, in Vietnam, in Tokyo, in Brazil, in Madrid. So it's a global workforce, and like we need to find the balance between catering for local realities and also running a global ship from an efficiency perspective.
Yeah, thank you for that. I was asking this question as well because last week, I think it was the end of last week or it was 2 days ago. I'm quite not very well educated, but it was BMG who appointed as their new CEO, their former CFO, who came from the consultancy business, right, from McKinsey or something like that, and he has like 5 years or something of his experience within the music biz. So I was quite curious to understand the moves. Maybe it's due to catalog acquisition and the financial aspects that all of the publishing and record business are involving nowadays. But it was an interesting one. And as we've been talking about songwriters and publishers and labels and artists, what steps, either be it licensing or operational or tech, what steps do your platforms, YouTube and Meta, do you take to protect the songwriters' content and the publishers' rights and the artists and labels? What, Lauren or Eduard?
I mean, for Meta, we want to enable users to be able to use music features on our platforms, but also we have to uphold and protect the agreements that we have with music rights holders. So I think we've got to a stage now where most licenses are there to protect songwriters and artists and labels. But some of the things that Meta might do, for example, is limit the amount of recorded music that props up on Facebook and Instagram, because we're not a music streaming platform. Or we might develop tools to enable rights holders to be able to take down or monitor their videos. And obviously, usage reporting. We have been, reporting for 4 years to the industry now for music consumption and production. So all of these things we do.
Combined,
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think similarly we have like a suite of corporate management tools. So depending on the nature of the rights holder, there's different options to manage content on YouTube. Like, I think the most well-known one, and like the one that scales the most that our licensors have access to, is Content ID. Content ID, I touched on it earlier, but like it has the ability to give the rights holder the choice to decide what to do with their IP on the platform. So effectively, they can either block, track, or monetize a given song or a composition, and that is ultimately the way we build a platform, right? Like we have licenses, we have thousands of licenses with all different kind of rights holders, both on the label and on the publishing side, and ultimately it's their choice whether music is available on YouTube or not, both in terms of the content they deliver to us directly, but also the content that users upload. So it's there's like multiple layers of sophistication depending on the operator, but like from a web tape form that's available to absolutely everybody, and to Content ID and to specific tools within Content ID that allow you to do very bespoke things with your IP, and like what do you want to happen when users upload, whether it's a percentage of the song or whether it's like a variety of the song.
Yeah. Okay. So another thing that both of your companies do, it's education. We've seen like YouTube Summit. It was like 1 week ago, or it was last week, right? Irene was there. Yeah, she's not in yet. She really enjoyed it, and also Meta. Sorry, second.
You got one more.
Yeah,
one more
I won't
chance.
allow myself for a third one. So, and also, Meta, you have a lot of education program, and you try to like reach CMOs and PROs with the songwriters programs. But I think in this room we are all thinking about the future of music and where it goes. You talked about NFTs. What about the metaverse? Now metaverse. So what plans
Yes.
do you have? And
Now Meta. The metaverse is well, from a personal perspective, I'm obsessed with the Quest headset. Who here has actually tried a Quest or has been in the metaverse?
not with an headset.
Oh my gosh, guys, we need to change this. I need to bring some headsets. Oh my gosh. Okay, so basically, I got really into like gaming with my Quest. So did our mutual friend Summer.
Yep.
During lockdown, where I was bored in my room, I had this headset, and I was basically just got obsessed with like virtual table tennis. Anyway, this is a random tangent. In terms of the metaverse, obviously, Facebook rebranded to Meta a couple of years ago, and the metaverse is really our 10-year vision for the future of the internet. You're probably more interested in kind of some of the music initiatives maybe related to the metaverse. We've begun exploring some ideas. So we've done a couple of one-off VR concerts in this place called Horizon Worlds, which is basically our social hub in the metaverse, where you can have a little home and it's all in virtual reality, and I can come and visit your home and we can like catch up in the virtual world. But you can also go and watch a concert there. The other thing we have in terms of music are games that use music in the metaverse. So one of the games I would recommend highly to you all, because I'm also obsessed with it, it's called Beat Saber, and it's where you have two lightsabers and blocks of music literally fly at you, and you have to slash them to the beat of the music. And I'm dangerous, let me just say that, dangerous. But that's really good fun. And then also we've been thinking about creatively, what would a music video look like in a world where you could interact with it, and it could be all around you. And we did a collaboration with a Latin American group called Blessed, shooting a first ever music video in VR. So again, really kind of early stages, but I think there's so much opportunity for music in the metaverse. And if you ask me a question on, what's the future for music and digital, I think the 10-year thing, I hope that there will be lots of opportunities for music and publishers and labels in this space.
Well, that was the next question to Eduard. So what do you see as the future of digital music consumption? But also if you want to talk about metaverse, AI, any...
Yeah, I mean, I think you can take this in so many directions, right? Like one area that we've seen explode is the creator economy, and like how participation has become like a core element of the music industry. Like if you think about like many of us, I mean, I think we have a broad age range here, but many of us like leaned into music by going to a record store and buying a vinyl or buying a CD, and then going home, playing it on repeat, learning the lyrics, and then just like kind of talking to our friends about it, going to gigs, right? Like now, Gen Z and like younger kids are creating content around music nonstop, and this has been very apparent in short form content, but like we're seeing now the majority of hours of content consumed are on content that's delivered by creators, by independent creators. The YouTuber example, right? And I think that's an opportunity for the music industry to if you think about the sing world and how that translates into the micro sing and to the millions of uploaders there's on open platforms like YouTube or the Meta properties. It's, I think, to me, an excellent opportunity. Metaverse, I think you touched on it. I was there. I did a VR video with the Gorillas like 5 years ago with some headset that just feels like,
It feels cool
it,
with the
it
gorillas.
just, I mean, we felt so cool with the Gorillas, with the guys, and just it was like their comeback as well. But I think that's when you think about immersive experiences, of course, technology will continue to enable more seamless interactions, both in terms of consumption, in terms of creation. I think it's early days for AI, but Google is core on AI. We're super excited about the opportunity. It was Google I/O a few weeks back. We announced a few tests that we've been running. It's early days for music. We're super excited to work with industry partners to figure out how AI creation tools will help further democratize access to making music. Right? If you think about we were talking about the production of music, the distribution of music, and the marketing of music, and the barrier to access to that having lowered over the last decade. If you think about, the craft from learning how to play the drums or learning how to play the guitar, and now, interacting with technology, the same way we saw with EDM and electronic music exploding a couple decades ago, right? How can these be the next generation of music creation and assisted technology? I think it'd be super, super interesting to watch and to work on figuring out how to bring it to consumers and bring it to the industry.
Oh, thank you for that, guys. It's impressive, really, on our end as licensors, and we have a particularity at Unison. The majority of us are lawyers, although we work in operations or licensing or etc. So
a lot of you
we have a lot of nerd talk, about AI and that stuff, and to understand where it goes. But today, I think it's at 4 or 5 p.m. It's 4 p.m. We'll have an interesting panel precisely about AI and where it goes with people with artists, lawyers, and people from the music industry. So it will be an interesting one where we can have more discussion. I would love to go into that. I know that I will steal some topics from today's panel, but we don't have a lot of time. We have 15 minutes left. Thank you immensely for sharing your thoughts here so openly. And I would pass it to the attendees if you have any questions that you like to ask on this unprecedented opportunity to have Meta and YouTube at the same panel here. And thank you guys again.
Yeah, I was wondering. So you were talking a lot about the new trends or or NFTs, micro licensing. So besides that, how do you? So I see that everything that is coming up is kind of prone to be rebranded from the old system to the new one. It's just more data in a digital world. But do you see anything else that we can do regarding to the trends to improve this licensing capacity? Is there anything besides use more data, more licenses, more? It's on these formats. In the NFTs, it's kind of easy to see that it's a brand new thing. But on the rest of things that you were mentioning, I see them more like a rebranding of the old version. But how do you see that? Because I think that is really, really interesting to know.
I think for me, where my company does operate in this innovative space where we're working on things like the metaverse, I would just love partners to try out these products so that they understand exactly what we're talking about. And that's something that I'm also try and do as well. I try and get around our partners, do education sessions on the metaverse and Instagram and Facebook and things like that. So I think it's really increasing understanding of these complicated products to make approaches to licensing easier. And also just having open spaces where we can actually brainstorm about how it would be best together to license something like the metaverse or, short form video, and having these open collaborative space. I think that's going to be more important than ever moving forward with some of the initiatives that you touched on as well.
Yeah, yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think the bridge between the recorded and the publishing worlds have gone closer,
Yeah.
just because of the need to license products like short form and like to speed up the velocity of those deals. And then likewise, like the relationship between the music industry and the tech world has become one, right? And I think like you have people from both sides working on each other's, and I think that also helps find solutions and think about like what's going to be the best technical solution. Is there a world where you deliver all rights together? I think there's some companies that are betting for that and that are signing artists and that are signing all the rights, including publishing, and that gives them an advantage in terms of like speed to market. So I think the velocity that we're innovating at will force us to adopt more solutions in the next few years. If I think about the first deals that we did and like the way we got publishing rights and like now the collaboration there is and like some labels are delivering publishing rights on upload and with technology like blockchain and whatnot, like it can be further optimized. So I definitely think we'll see a lot more to come in this space.
Thank you, Lauren, and thank you, Edward. I don't know if we have any other questions from the attendees. Okay.
Can't believe it. No more questions. Oh, here we go. Come on, don't be shy. I mean, that's an opportunity that you don't have very often.
I think what she said about, at least for us at the label, I work for an indie label, and we did a partnership with a micro licensing platform, especially for YouTube, actually, and we did see a huge increase in revenue, and it was very significant for a label our side. And in the end, the process wasn't that complicated, especially because they were able to use this algorithm and access our CMS and then clear the videos themselves. So then, that was already very helpful for us in terms of revenue, but also for Facebook. Sorry.
No, this is a
I'm
safe
so
space.
sorry.
I really do. You can call us whatever you like, honestly.
Yes.
It's difficult. It's difficult.
It
honestly,
is.
To get
It
used
took
to
me.
it. Yeah.
It took me a year, and to this day I'm still like Meta.
Yeah, I know. Because I grew up with the first name, so
Yes,
then
me
it's kind of
too.
hard at this time. But anyways, I think micro licensing has, for me at least, as an indie label, I've seen a lot of benefits in working with it and having a platform that helps you manage those things, because a lot of times it wasn't really manageable for me to keep talking about small licenses for like video creators or a guy in school that needs that for his final video. And I saw a lot of, for now at least, I think it's very helpful. I don't know how you guys feel about those kind of platforms that allow for micro licensings and help labels like us. But I'm a big supporter, and especially when dealing with UGC platforms, it was a big help for me.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree more. I think some of these platforms have been our partners for a good part of 5-6 years. They developed the technology to enable these at scale. The way I see it, creators are the radio stations of today and the future, right? Like, we grew up listening to the radio, driving around. Now, again, kids like watch multiple channels on YouTube and other properties, and some of them don't know how to turn on a radio, right? So you need to lean on these people that have these audiences and have the ability to influence and promote your music, right? So it's I think we're just at the beginning of this journey. It's been a hard transition, I think, for many people in the industry to understand the value of the creator economy and to understand how you need to change your mindset from signing one-off sync deals that require a lot of manual work, that require a lot of entities agreeing to the same terms, to finding a framework that works and that it's mutually beneficial for the creator and for the rights holders. So I think it's really encouraging to hear that it's worked for you. I think there's a lot of benefits, especially for emerging artists who are young and are leaned in and they understand the language of how creators operate, and they can create those bridges. And oftentimes it's not just a thing, but it actually becomes a relationship between the creator and the artist, and there's like room for collaboration. Like we we announced Creator Music in September last year in LA with Kao Hanagami, who is a choreographer who choreographed Chanel's our Eurovision representative from last year, right? And he's he has a massive audience, and he's really passionate about new artists and supporting emerging talent. So I think that's a wonderful example of how one creator out of LA can help promote music from all over the world.
For our smallest artists that had seen in 1 year a total of 5,000 streams, all of a sudden there's this income because one creator started using, and then a lot of others picked up, and then now they're seeing income that really they didn't see in 2 years with micro licensing. So I think it's a good, I don't know, I would definitely recommend it as a label manager. Yes.
Thank you.
And now we all want to know which is this company that it's helping you with the micro licensing. You first you get a deal, and then you tell us all which company is that. Exactly, perfect. We look forward to hearing which company is that one.
You call Paul.
Okay, any more questions? No?
One
Over
question
there at
there,
the back.
Jordan.
Yeah, sorry, I'll cross in front. Excuse me.
Hey, so thanks for the talk, very interesting. I have a bit of a drier question, but driven out of curiosity. I think it's fair to assume that oftentimes licensing tools are, obviously they grow out of new technologies, but also out of the pressure coming from major labels, right, it's basically licensing pressure, right? Which makes sense and is great because it enables us to all together enjoy new licensing tools. But I imagine then also these tools are optimized for these catalogs and these providers, right? And I'm wondering how you, is that work that you do in adapting those tools to an independent market as well? Are there any key players that you have to mediate with? Is it Merlin? Is it Impala? And or do you have internal work units who explore this constantly? I'm just curious about these dynamics.
Do you have an example of a licensing tool that you're thinking of?
Content ID, for example. Yeah.
I mean, on our side, our tools are quite, again, similar. All our licensors on the recorded side have access to pretty much the same kind of tools. Impala sits on a different side. They're a policy trade body, not a licensor, but Merlin is a licensor. And I think majors are obviously incredibly vast in some developed markets, but when you think of India, when you think of Korea, when you think of Japan, the majority of the market share comes from independents. If you think about TCR, Sergama, Z, Avex, Hype, these are all massive companies that operate a majority stake in the respective markets. So from our perspective, the content management system, which is the back end you get when you have a direct license with YouTube, looks pretty much the exact same for all our licensors. It's going to be maybe a difference in the reporting in some instances when it comes to the partners that I was mentioning at the beginning that get consolidated rights, but it's super consistent. So that stuff is something that when we launch a new product, we make sure that we have all the infrastructure to service at scale all our partners, because we couldn't launch globally, we couldn't launch in Korea, we couldn't launch in India if we weren't able to cater for those companies. So we definitely have equity there.
Yeah, I don't think I'd really add much to that other than obviously partners, particularly on the publishing side, might have maybe more bespoke needs. And in that case, we will just go around talking to our partners, getting feedback on the licensing tools that we have and putting them on roadmaps. But I think the same with you, we optimize for scale, and we have this principle of being fair. We want to give all of our partners the same tools. So
and you quite adapt well to RMEs as well, being a different source of licensing.
Yeah.
Licensing rights than the traditional CMOs.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a whole different thing right now. There's artists signing one song deals with majors and indies, and these artists have their own labels. They do a collab with somebody, deliver it through a major, but then distribute. It's insane. There's people that deliver through 5 different entities, and then they consolidate on their end. So technology has gotten extremely sharp to cater for that and to have consistency there.
Thank you. Yeah, I don't think we have more time. Yeah, we are just sharp for our next panel. which will be about metadata, and it will have Irene from Unison and Emma from VMAT. So you are welcome to stay and enjoy this next panel. Again, thank you very much, Lauren from Meta, Eduard from YouTube. Apologies again for the confusion. But you had marine training, right? To
Oh
get
yes,
back.
yes.
Okay.
It's. I think about it in my sleep actually. Must say Meta. Must say
Nightmares.
Meta.
Okay. And thank you all, guys, for the questions and for attending this session. And yeah, see you within 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you very
Thank you
much.
so much.
Yeah, round of applause.